WAFB 9 News, tracking Hurricane Francine.
And here at 9 o'clock, we are tracking Hurricane Francine together, all about making sure that you are informed and aware of all the developments on this Wednesday.
In our particular viewing area, not expecting any kind of a major impact for a number of hours. We're still not expecting landfall until maybe, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. Where that landfall is going to be with Francine, we believe right now, according to the latest track, right around Morgan City.
Well, we have a live crew down there. Matt Venezia has been live all morning long. And Matt, you were along the seawall there. Where have you moved to at this hour, and what are you seeing here at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, Liz, we're actually still at the seawall. Just now we're next to it. So I want Brandon to kind of show you. With these boots on that I had to get for this purpose, right? Got to be ready. I'm about 6 feet tall, and this thing is probably at least double my height, if not maybe a little bit more. So puts into perspective kind of the protection this is providing to the shops and the things we were showing a little bit earlier here. Brandon can show you. And I also wanted to show you, too, because the rain really has picked up a lot. I know we said that the last time we joined you guys, but, I mean, here's just a drain right here, really, and the water is still collecting quite a bit outside of it, but I mean we're splashing quite a bit. So I mean it's still 2-3 hours before this thing's really supposed to land, and the wind has picked up quite a bit. It's just something we're just going to have to wait and see. And that seems to be the conversation from everyone right now, all the different reporters that are reporting from different parishes in the viewing area and kind of what they're seeing in certain spots. I mean, you see over there, that's our unit right here, WAFB Channel 9 car. There's a good puddle collecting right behind it as well. You even see some other stations over there. Fox National, their Weather Channel guys are over there doing some conversations as well. So we've been picking their ear a little bit about what they're expecting. And ultimately, again, since this appears to be ground zero, what people are expecting to be where landfall is initially going to strike once this thing gets into the states here in Louisiana, this is probably where we're going to see the most impact right off the gate when it does get here. So until then, I mean, water's dripping down from the seawall here. We are trying to as well speak with the sheriff of St. Mary Parish. That should be hopefully a conversation in the coming minutes, hopefully. But ultimately, again, we're just trying to stay safe, trying to stay all right. We're ready to go over there if wind starts to pick up a little bit. But it did happen in a matter of mere minutes where I was like, oh yeah, the rain is starting to pick up a little bit, and then it just came out of nowhere. So obviously we've ditched the umbrella, we had the hat on, now we got the hood. So this is kind of the update we have for you. We are trying to stay safe here. Again, the curfew here locally kicks in at about 11 a.m. and will carry on through into tomorrow morning. So there are a couple of cars. I think one just went by that, there's a handful of cars in the area. We've seen a couple people drive around, wishing us to stay safe and whatnot. But at 11, we hope that they're going to be parked and at their homes because no one should be driving out here in, probably 3 or 4 hours from now. So still something to monitor. We'll continue to update as we can and trying to be ready because it seems like Francine is getting closer and closer, guys. So that's kind of what we have for you here. So we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Matt, thank you. Eyes on the ground there in Morgan City.
Right now, look, it looks like a light rain, right? For a lot of folks in South Louisiana, like, okay, what next? Mm-hmm. Well, what next is what we're getting ready for. If you've never been to Morgan City, if you've never stood next to that wall, it is pretty impressive. We've been down there a number of times. I know you have as well. That's about 20 feet, right? 20 feet tall. And the whole idea for that wall and that place is to stop a flood. The water pushing in from the bay. It is that tall for a reason, to protect Morgan City and beyond. What they expect as far as surge to get to that point, how much of the wall might they have to use and need, it's there for a reason. But on the other side of that thing, you saw some stuff boarded up. Matt's been showing us that this morning. But they know how to do it there in Morgan City. They've done this before. A little light rain as folks get ready for what's to come.
Still early on in the day here, and we're riding through it with you together. Again, we've got crews all over South Louisiana, and we want to check back in with Josh Robertson with our sister station, Fox 8, WAFB in New Orleans. He's been kind of roaming around in Lafourche Parish there. We last checked in with him. He was live in Leeville. Let's see where he is now.
We're in Leeville. We just got to Leeville. If you know where that is, this is Old Highway 1. It keeps going right into Leeville. Right behind us is the gateway to the Gulf, which will take you to Port Fourchon and eventually Grand Isle. Not any place you want to be right now because we're seeing those flooding issues. And I'll come over here and I'll show you. These guys are here. We tried to talk to them. They were too busy. They couldn't talk to us because they're tying up their boat right now. These guys here, they're getting ready to tie up their boat as we speak, and then they're probably getting out of here. And obviously, these areas right here, Grand Isle, if you keep going down the gateway to the Gulf, you get to Grand Isle. That is under a mandatory evacuation. We're in Lafourche Parish, obviously, and here in Leeville, where we're seeing, if you walk down a little bit, and we'll take a little stroll here, and kind of show you the flooding. It's becoming a problem here. Bayou Lafourche starting to overtop Highway 1, and we saw a lot of that as soon as we crossed over outside of the levee protection. As soon as we went over the floodgate, which on Bayou Lafourche, the floodgate is closed. The road gate, they're going to keep open because they don't think it's going to overtop that. The road gate actually sits on top of the levee. It's pretty high up. They don't feel like that's going to get breached. So they're going to keep that road gate open. The floodgate is closed. And as soon as we went over, we started seeing the bayou and that storm surge starting to impact the roadway and some cars. And if you look, keep past, I'll let Jake walk on past me. You can see the water starting to come over Highway 1 here in Leeville, and then way off in the distance you see the high rise, that gateway to the Gulf, which again we might venture down to see just how far we can go, but we're not going to linger out here long because it's going to get less and less safe as Francine gets closer. We're expecting to see that wind. We're going to expect to see more rain because the rain's been pretty consistent. It's not unbearable. We're not getting, well, I say we're not getting drenched. We're drenched just because we've been standing out here in it for quite a long time now. But the rain is pretty steady. The wind is not impacting really much of anything right now, but those conditions are going to deteriorate as we get Francine closer and closer to us. Wherever it decides to make landfall, it's going to cause storm surge right here where we are right now, and it's going to cause a big issue with the wind, probably going to knock some stuff over. And so if you're here in this area, you want to go ahead and get north of the levee protection system. In Lafourche Parish, we talked to the president, Archie Chason. He says they're well aware of the conditions. They're in their command center. They got all the parish officials ready to go. They got all their problem areas checked. They got additional pumps, those portable pumps that they set out in places. If you're in places like Lafitte, you'll see them also, and in Terrebonne, you'll see them. Their pumps are all working, and then they have the portable pumps that they put in some of those problem areas so they can just continue to pump water out when they need to. But they're going to stay on top of all of this. They're going to monitor the situation here in Lafourche Parish. Again, there's a curfew that goes into place at noon, starting at noon, so they don't want businesses open at that point. They want residents, wherever they're at that point, they want them to stay there. In Lockport, they got a community center where they're open right now. That is the shelter of last resort in Lockport. Archie actually told me earlier this morning there are people that are utilizing that community center, that shelter of last resort already as they speak. They've got shelter for them there. You want to make sure and bring your belongings if you need to, bring some amenities, bring food if you need it, water, stuff like that, but it is going to be a shelter there for you if you're staying in a trailer or staying in some sort of a home that is not safe, that can't handle flooding conditions or wind conditions like we're going to see pick up here. So we're pretty far south right now. We're going to hang out here until we feel like we don't want to anymore, and then we're going to go ahead and go north. But we'll send it back to you now. We're live here in Leeville, keeping an eye on these conditions as we know Francine getting closer and closer now.
All right, Josh, thank you. So with any of the storms there, especially for our folks and viewers who live closer to the coastal parishes there, you may already be using your generator just out of precaution to make sure it works here before things start really kicking up and people lose power. And we want to remind you that a lot of the threat, the danger comes well after the storm passes, right, Matt? How often do we talk about carbon monoxide poisoning and the importance of having carbon monoxide detectors? Really hope that you have a couple of those lying around your home right now.
You know, and it's one thing to have us say it. We want to repeat that for you so just it's fresh on your mind. But earlier this morning, Matt Venezia was talking with the fire chief right there in Morgan City, and he could not talk about it enough. Yeah. He's obviously been around for a minute. He understands the difficulties, the dangers that come with trying to power your life post storm before the power comes back on. Just be safe out there. We mentioned it because every time we get a storm or coast to coast around the country, East Coast, left coast, third coast, you'll have problems with generators and carbon monoxide poisoning. Be safe.
So as we continue to track Francine's landfall, still early on here, we're tracking that later on into the afternoon. Landfall still looking to be later on this afternoon between 2 roughly till 5 p.m. So right now we want to get a better look at some of the live cameras here. This is courtesy of LUMCON there. In Terrebonne Parish, you're getting a look. If you didn't know, it stands for Louisiana University's Marine Consortium. That's where we're getting this live look right now. And you can see, Matt, a little bit of light rain as we've seen over the last hour. We checked in with Rob Krieger, who was there in Terrebonne, still kind of waiting for the major impact to come ashore there. Still pretty quiet as we see.
So that's we're taking you south. Clearly, we were just giving you a look at Lafourche Parish, one parish to the left. That's exactly where you were a second ago. That'd be Terrebonne. And these are the parishes kind of under the gun, so to speak, as Francine begins to come closer and closer to making that landfall. Where specifically is that going to happen? We believe kind of right near Morgan City, which is why we have our Matt Venezia there. But when we talk about getting down into those lower parishes, those are the folks that know if they need to start getting out, road-wise, that kind of thing. Of course, we got somebody in our little part of the world here who can always keep the eyes on the road for us.
That's it. Johnny Asian already monitoring all of our traffic cameras, getting you a look. Johnny, I believe you've got, 200-plus cameras to track all the things.
Sure do, and we're looking at all of them. I want to give you an update periodically, and I may sound like a broken record. Plaquemine Sunshine Ferry Boat is running right now. It will go out of service at 10 a.m. so that they can take that and secure it in preparation for gale force winds. That's going to be the case for all the ferries in the New Orleans area, Canal Street Ferry, Chalmette Ferry, things like that. Now, the Grosse Tate Pedestrian Ferry is already closed in Iberville Parish. They will remain closed until sometime maybe tomorrow afternoon. Out of an abundance of caution, CATS has informed us they will not be running buses today at all in the city of Baton Rouge because of the hurricane. They'll resume that tomorrow. All right, airport departures out of BTR. We told you earlier this morning that everything after about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock was canceled, except Delta was hanging on to some flights. In fact, that Delta to Atlanta at 12:22, for a long time, they said that was on time. They have now joined American and United, and they've canceled flights. So we have one more flight departure out of BTR before they hunker down for the storm, and that's going to be the Delta to Atlanta at 10:20. Take you right on down. We've got the overlay on here. Take you right on down toward Terrebonne Parish, right near the Homa area. So here's Thibodaux right here. Here's Homa. You can see some rain shower activity starting to come into the area. We're off again, on again. Some of our cameras in Terrebonne Parish and Homa are starting to go down. This one's up. This is Highway 182, New Orleans Avenue. That's the New Orleans Bridge over Bayou Terrebonne. And Bayou Terrebonne looks a little high there. I can tell you from being in this area, I know this area well, it's not. That's what it looks like normally. So will it get higher than that? Not sure. Take you back out from the Homa Thibodaux area and go north of there up toward I-55 between Ponchatoula and Laplace, right around Bayou Manchac. We have a camera shot there, and that's going to be right near the Middendorf's area. That's my point of reference because I love the thin fried catfish. We will be able to get some later, not today. So do be careful as you make your way in and around Skyline of New Orleans from our WAFB Sky9 camera networks. And that is starting to get a little busy. However, I just got off the phone with the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway Police. There are no restrictions north or southbound on the causeway as of this hour. Guys?
All right, Johnny, thank you for keeping your eyes all across South Louisiana. Hey, let's talk about some resources here while we have you. Sandbags, right? In our viewing area, still going to be a bit of time. So you have some time here, last bit of preparations, especially when you talk about maybe the elderly or disabled individuals. We've just learned Livingston Parish, they've already pre-filled some of those sandbags at the LPSO Walker facility. Just have someone come pick them up and drop them off to you. But Matt, you can see all across our viewing area, different parishes are ready.
And it's a long list, and our digital team is working to keep that updated. At some point it may run out here and there. I tell you what, Liz, though, ever since, Gustav 08, since 2016, and when the mayor was just in with us, she's like, I wasn't in a flood zone.
Right.
And then all of a sudden out of your house for, a year and a half. Since 16, the ability to do something, to feel like you're keeping your stuff as safe as possible, it matters. Yeah. And sandbags, for a lot of folks, that's kind of the way to go, and it has made a difference for a lot of folks. So to your point as well, there's still some time right now. It's calm-ish. If you don't have to be out there, don't be out there. That's the advice. But if you still feel like you need that sandbag to keep your spot safe, to make you feel better, you got locations.
An abundance of caution.
Yeah.
And please, folks, look out for your neighbor here.
Oh, yeah.
If you have elderly neighbors or maybe in your neighborhood, think about them too. While it's calm, this is going to be a good time to go out there, fill up those sandbags, and make sure that our neighbors are taken care of in the event that this becomes something that's a little dicey here. We're tracking all of it for you, making sure you're prepared. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You there, boy! What day is today? Why, it's debate day, sir.
Jon Stewart's at the desk.
And they said it couldn't be done.
To cover the debate that could change the world as we know it.
Hey, John, come back to the Daily Show just for the election. It'll be fun. You'll do one day a week, it'll be a larve.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show. Complete debate coverage with Jon Stewart. Now streaming on Paramount+.
Oh, hey, I'm your celebrity spokesperson for Zine, the new way to stream local news, sports, and events from all over the country. But Zine speaks for itself. It doesn't need a celebrity spokesperson to tell you to download Zine. Besides, an ex-teen idol like myself might resort to pandering gimmicks. You're too smart for that. Let's cut to the Zeem logo before I do some sexy overdramatic ending, huh? Zeem. Always local, always free.
To help protect from HIV, I prep without pills.
With Apretude, a prescription medicine used to reduce the risk of HIV without daily PrEP pills, with one shot every other month, just 6 times a year. In studies, Apretude was proven superior to a daily PrEP pill in reducing the risk of HIV. You must be HIV negative to receive Apretude and get tested before each injection. If you think you were exposed to HIV or have flu-like symptoms, tell your doctor right away. Apretude does not prevent other sexually transmitted infections. Practice safer sex to reduce your risk. Don't take Apretude if you're allergic to it or taking certain medicines as they may interact. Tell your doctor if you've had liver or kidney problems or mental health concerns. If you have a rash or other allergic reactions, stop Apretude and get medical help right away. Serious side effects include allergic reactions, liver problems, and depression. Some of the most common side effects include injection site reactions and headache. You must receive Apretude as scheduled. Ask your doctor about long-acting Apretude. Save at Apretude.com.
You there, boy! What day is today? Why, it's debate day, sir.
Jon Stewart's at the desk
And they said it couldn't be done.
to cover the debate that could change the world as we know it.
Hey, John, come back to the Daily Show just for the election. It'll be fun. You'll do one day a week. It'll be a larf.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show. Complete debate coverage with Jon Stewart. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
WAFB 9 News, tracking Hurricane Francine.
At 9:18 on this Wednesday morning, as we continue to track Hurricane Francine, not a lot of immediate impact locally just yet, but the storm and kind of the outer feeder bands already have an impact at some level.
So Johnny H has been tracking flight cancellations. So let's get you a look out of MSY. If you had a flight planned out of New Orleans there, you can see this web story. We're staying on top of that. You're hearing from the Jefferson Parish president if you open that story right now with us. But most of those flights out of New Orleans, well, they've been canceled. No surprise there as Francine is incoming. Why put the risk out there with people up in the air? So just know if you had a flight out today, chances are it's going to be canceled.
Don't make your way over to Louis Armstrong. Now, here's the thing. What about making your way over to Baton Rouge Metro? What about the flights over there? Actually, our Gabrielle Mercurio has made her way around and is actually at Metro right now. Gabby, I'm not seeing a lot of folks behind you. What's the latest with Metro?
Hey guys, you're absolutely right. It is a little bit of a ghost town here, but the airport's actually still open. So there's one last flight that's just arrived around 9:15. That's what Director Mike Edwards just told me. Just got off the phone with him a few minutes ago. That's the last flight coming to the airport. That flight will also have a group of passengers going right back out in about an hour or so. That's the last flight that's coming out of this airport. United and American Airlines canceled all the rest of their arrivals and departures for today. So definitely want to make sure that you're checking if you were supposed to fly out at some point. An interesting thing, though, the director of the airport told me that they will stay open. They'll have crews here to monitor what's going on and make sure the taxiways everything are all right. But no flights are going out. It's not up to them on whether those flights will be coming in and out. It's up to the airline. So make sure you go ahead and check with your airline where your flight is supposed to be going for rescheduling or when it's supposed to come back in or out. Like I said, the airport will stay open. They're going to be monitoring conditions throughout the entirety of the storm, making sure if there's damage. Mike also told me that they'll be doing routine airfield inspections, monitoring the taxiways when it's safe to do so, obviously, as the winds and rain start coming through to make sure that there's no damage, because they use those taxiways often for emergency operations as well. So no regular flights coming in and out. There's one more going out today in about an hour. Like I said, I'm sure you've heard Johnny say it as well, but that's about it. So it's going to be pretty quiet here at the airport. Everything's going to be wrapping up in about an hour. So no more flights in and out today. Want to check and see if there are going to be any tomorrow either.
Some great on-the-ground reporting there. Thank you for a live look, and we'll keep our eyes on that. Gabby, thanks.
Okay, so keeping our eyes on where Francine is right now. As the hours and the minutes kind of tick by here, getting closer to expected landfall and the shift and track what it might be doing, our storm team's been all over it. Jared Silverman joining us live for the very latest here to get the very, get us caught up here on where Francine is and what we might expect.
That's it. Our First Alert weather team making sure that you are on top of it. In fact, make sure you have the WAFB weather app. Jared sent out an update not long ago. And Jared, are you getting any new updates here at 9:21?
We're actually waiting for the 10 o'clock update, guys, which is going to come out pretty soon. We're expecting that it is still going to be somewhere around Category 1, which it is right now.
maximum sustained winds at 90 miles per hour. That, of course, at the last check, could briefly get up to a Category 2. Now, first things first, of course, we still have our flood watch that's in effect through 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, but it might even be able to let go a little bit earlier than that because the models agree this should pick up some speed, especially when it moves inland and especially as it moves past the Baton Rouge area, which, by the way, EBR and West Baton Rouge parishes, from those points back down to the south, we still have the hurricane warning. But you can see as this track has generally migrated farther and farther to the west, it has made a dent over in the western part of Louisiana. Lafayette, they were actually under that same hurricane warning. Not so. It's over for them now, and the severe weather threat is going to push generally over to the east as well. Meantime, the radar is starting to get a little bit busy. This is what we were expecting. We were expecting the weather conditions to gradually deteriorate as we get to the latter part of the morning. And what we're seeing right now is nothing overly taxing, but this is one of the main rain shields on the northern flank of Hurricane Francine. So it makes sense that the farther and farther south we go, Golden Meadow, Galliano, Houma, Dulac, over to Morgan City, Jeanerette, and right along generally the 90, Highway 90 area, we're starting to see it move at a better clip right there. But again, even those showers, you can see the general trend. As they start to move a little bit more to the north, they get cut off from their moisture source, and then they start to lose their punch just a little bit. But the storm itself definitely is not losing its punch. Matter of fact, it is expected to, at the very least, at the bare minimum, maintain its current course and strength. That means when it hits, it should be with maximum sustained winds of at least 90 miles per hour. By the way, that still makes it a higher end Category 1. Could jump up to a low end Category 2 right before that happens. Now, of course, I'm going to show you both models between the differences of the graph and also the Euro. So you're looking at the graph. This has been the faster one, but not only that, this has been the real ringleader that's been wanting to take this storm much, much closer to the New Orleans area rather than Baton Rouge. So as we put it in motion, here it is. And as I mentioned, this is the faster model. So right now I'm leaning on this model being a little bit too fast because this shows the landfall right around 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I really do think it's going to be a little bit later. Where I somewhat agree is that it's going to take a path. Remember when Ida moved through and it kind of picked a lane in between Baton Rouge and New Orleans? I think that's what this one's going to do too, only this time around the center circulation should be a little bit closer to Baton Rouge. I'm going to show you that on the European. Nevertheless, at 3:30 in the afternoon, the graph says from Reserve down to Houma over to New Orleans, they're going to get the heavier rain. The one thing that we're definitely gaining confidence on from a forecasting standpoint is that New Orleans and eastern Louisiana, they're going to be on the bad side. They're going to be on the dirty side of the storm, that east side that is notorious for getting spin up and getting rotation. But one of the things that we've been saying, at least the models agree on the timing out. Maybe not the timing in, but the end time should be very shortly after midnight. So that's good. It's not going to waste a lot of time. It's going to put on some speed and howl on out of here pretty quickly. Now let's show you a couple of wind gusts with it. This is the forecast wind gust from the graph model, and you can see right here, right around Cocodrie and in between Morgan City, that's where it's got landfall. So the latest, the graph is kind of pushed down a little bit, and in fact, this new update on the graph, look at that. This is actually slowed down a little bit. To me, that tells me that the models are now starting to come together. They're starting to at least agree a little bit better on the timing, and there you can see what happens. Now, the graph model, this model would be worse for New Orleans, but it would be better for the Baton Rouge area. You can see the wind gusts there, not quite as brisk. As I mentioned, it moves through quickly. This is midnight tonight, and look at that. It's already getting on out of here by daybreak. Matter of fact, even before daybreak, not only should it be out of our viewing area, it should be completely out of the state, and then we can get on with our lives and get on with the cleanup. Hopefully it won't be that bad. Now let's go with the European. The European has been consistently the slower model. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This 3 o'clock in the afternoon, European still has it well out to sea, but we freeze it here. It still says Morgan City. It's been real consistent about that. I'll tell you that the past few days. And this is 7 p.m. So right now, that's where I'm kind of hedging my bets. I think landfall should be around the Morgan City to Cocodrie area. I'm looking at a time frame anywhere between 3 in the afternoon to, I think, a little bit earlier than 7 p.m. So right now, let's say landfall should be later in the afternoon and inland by the time we get to early evening. Nevertheless, you see that the winds pick up over in Morgan City. Now I'm going to point my finger in Baton Rouge. Let's see if it's still doing the same thing, and it is. So this is around 9:30 p.m., and the European model, shows that we'll get a 70-mile-per-hour, maybe even a little bit more than a 70-mile-per-hour wind gust in the Baton Rouge area. Now, if you're wondering why that would pan out, here's the reason why. Because notice how the center circulation, the European has the center circulation much, much more biased, much closer to the Baton Rouge area. So it makes sense if that actually panned out, we would get those stronger wind gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour. Won't be a Cat 2 or anything like that, but still, we could definitely see a lot in the way of widespread power outages. Of course, if the eye hedges itself a little bit closer towards New Orleans, like what the graph is saying, then the winds won't be as bad. So right now, the European is saying that it's getting very close to the Baton Rouge area, but we should at least be on the better side, if there is one, a cleaner side, hopefully the side that has less spin up, less rotation, and less severe weather. Now, as far as the rain, you would think because this storm is going to move through pretty quickly, it won't stop and drop a lot of rain, but it still looks like it is going to do just that. A general 4 to 7 inches is still expected, which is the reason why we've got the Wednesday flood outlook still in red, still level 3 moderate. Now let's shift gears and return to what we were talking about a second ago with the possibility of severe weather. This is what happens when that track keeps on shifting, right? When it keeps on shifting towards New Orleans. I mean, this has just been great news for the Lafayette to Lake Charles area. Remember, in the beginning a few days ago, from Lafayette to Lake Charles, they were worried that this might have their names written all over it. And even Lafayette, once upon a time, was in the same hurricane warning that we have right now. It's no longer there. It's gone with the wind. In fact, they're not even expecting severe weather in the Lafayette area. And now Baton Rouge, we're at a level 1, which again makes sense because we should at least be on the west side of the circulation, even if it is relatively close. Now, not great news if you're in the eastern part of our viewing area. So once you go east, I would say Livingston, Walker, going over to Hammond, going down to New Orleans, you folks, of course, might have a better chance of getting some of that tornadic activity. Right now, we don't have any tornado watches, no tornado warnings, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see that ramp up a little bit later on in the day. Meanwhile, we're waiting for the 10 a.m. update. We're going to get that soon. I suspect we're not going to see any tremendous changes here. Hopefully, it's not going to be any stronger than the 90 miles per hour we have right now. We're also looking at the minimum pressure, which has come down to 976. So as that minimum pressure comes down a little bit, sometimes that's suggestive that we're going to get a little bit stronger. So it could briefly become that Category 2. That would be a maximum sustained wind at 100 miles per hour. That just barely puts it over the threshold for Cat 2. Let me get in a little bit tighter so you can see this is the official track, and you can see what the official track is doing. It looks like it's taking a little bit of the graph, a little bit of the European, kind of sticking them and blending them together, but they still say that it should be very close to the Morgan City area. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming updates, the next couple of NHC tracks, I wouldn't be surprised if they push a little more to the east. So that's really what I'm going to be looking for out of these next couple of updates, because you can see the center line right here. It's still on the other side of Morgan City, the New Iberia side, and I actually think, if anything, it might be on the Cocodrie side, the Port Fourchon side, and we'll keep an eye on that. Now, when that center circulation passes close to Baton Rouge, I should point out, at this point, it's not supposed to be a hurricane anymore. It should weaken down to a strong tropical storm, wind should start to come down, and after midnight, that's it. It really is going to take off and get out of here. Dr. Steve was showing you this the other day. I wanted to show it too. This is the migration that we've seen over the past couple of days from track to track, all the NHC tracks. So again, these are not computer models. This was each track that we were getting from the National Hurricane Center, and you could see how much they have shifted just over the past few days. Very reminiscent, isn't it, of what happened with Hurricane Ida. Of course, this time around, it's not going to be nearly as strong as Ida. That storm was a beast. This one, hopefully, a little bit more manageable. And of course, now we've shifted the peak wind gust potential because of that shift in the track. So now Baton Rouge, I would say again, we could see the 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gust. It wouldn't be sustained. It would just be a gust. But then as you go a little bit closer towards the Lake Pontchartrain area, towards New Orleans, and in between there in Hammond, certainly down towards the coast, you folks over in Houma, again, I wouldn't be surprised if you guys did get hurricane force winds a little bit later on in the afternoon as it approaches. Also, when you live close to the coast like that, the immediate coastline still has that 5 to 10 foot storm surge potential. Now, that could stretch a little bit farther out towards the south and east, but again, that's more of a problem on the immediate coastline. And again, we dialed up this storm really on the right time of the hurricane season, the peak time, and we are right at the top of the pyramid. The top of the pyramid usually happens right around September 10th, September 11th, and then you get that sharp decrease. So hopefully we're going to see that, and hopefully this is the only storm like this that we're going to have to deal with in Louisiana. Louisiana. Fingers crossed on that. So again, let's sum this up with a couple of key messages. Heavy rain and flood threat, that's going to be today and tonight. The weather starts to really go downhill late in the morning, early in the afternoon. What we're going to prepare for are hurricane force winds. Not everybody in the viewing area is going to see that, but we want to prepare for the worst, stay safe, hope for the best. And most of our area, I would say, Category 1. The Category 2 possibility really is more for the immediate coast before it encounters that drier air, the more stable air, and it starts to stabilize a little bit. And what I think could be one of the best things right here, the weather rapidly improves on Thursday. As soon as daybreak on Thursday, all the rain should be over and the system starts to pull out. The other good thing that I was talking about, now we don't want to lose power, of course, but if we do lose power, at least we have these temperatures here that are going to be in the upper 70s, not the brutal heat that we have dealt with in months past. So at least that's somewhat of a silver lining. Again, obviously we would all rather just keep our power and get on with our lives. I know that. Overnight low 71, keep the rain chance pumped up. Now you can't see it here. We only go up to 11 p.m., but after midnight, I'm going to take you down from 80% and drive it all the way down to 0%. Matter of fact, so much to 0% that as we get to Thursday, we have now subtracted that red, so we're no longer in a first alert weather day for Thursday. Just the first alert weather day for today. That's the action day. Then we're looking better, and then it does start to heat up, so hopefully they can really do a good job repairing power, I would say before the weekend, because it will get a little bit hotter. Not crazy hot, but back into the 90s. As you have a look at the remainder of the 10-day forecast, much more quiet, nicer, and uneventful. But again, guys, the name of the game is that we're going to keep our eyes glued to satellite and radar, waiting on that 10 a.m. update to make sure that the storm hasn't put on even more strength.
All right, Jared, thank you. So as we wait for that here, let's get you an update from Tickfaw. We're seeing some flooding there of the Tickfaw in Livingston Parish. The Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office sharing some of these photos here. Look at that. Look at that.
This is the Tickfaw River, not the town of Tickfaw,
No.
like in Tangi. Okay, so well, yeah, obviously this is what they're kind of staring at here, a boat that should be above water, underwater. This is kind of what they expect when something like this comes ashore. Hasn't come ashore yet, but we're getting those outer feeder bands, and yeah, so those low-lying areas, folks there know exactly. Man, they could probably tell you to the foot where this is going to be happening, the water they're going to start to see begin to rise, and so we are going to start to see that as this rain kind of settles into its pattern. Those low-lying areas, they're going to see exactly that.
Well, let's speak about what we're seeing here. Let's check in back with Matt Venezia. He's live in Morgan City. And Matt, can you tell us exactly what street you're on there for us to kind of get our bearings?
Yeah, Liz, we're right next to the seawall that we were at a little bit earlier. Now, again, more of the shopping district here right off Freret Street. But, again, everything continuing as normal, right? The rain is picking up. The wind is picking up. We do have the sheriff of St. Mary Parish with us, Greg Driscoll, here with us to speak a little bit about, the operations up to this point. I'm sure you've been, we've seen you bouncing all over talking to different people, so this is probably going to be a same run of the land. But essentially, what's the morning look like, getting ready for today, and what's on the itinerary for you before this thing, gets to us here probably in about 2 hours?
Right now, we have extra patrols out. We're checking the water levels and things of that nature, making sure that everybody's going to stay safe. We're hoping that everybody stays indoors and allows us to do our jobs. But we have, like I said, we're prepared. We have high water vehicles. We have boats ready. Hopefully, we won't need any of them. And with it shifting a little bit further east, hopefully God's on our side.
Now, up to this point, it appears that there's the curfew here in Morgan City beginning at 11 a.m., probably just, a little over an hour from now. Are there other parts of the viewing area here in Parish, locally, other cities that are also having a curfew? What can you say about that?
Morgan City and Berwick is the only two that I know of that are having the curfews from 11 a.m. to 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Just to keep everybody off the roads and keep them safe so that they can patrol and do what they have to do without having to worry about these extra people out.
And we were speaking to the Morgan City police chief a little bit earlier. He was mentioning that there will be units out on the road, officers out there just checking things out before things get real bad. What can you say about, the crews that you're going to be kind of monitoring before the winds really do start picking up and trying to keep everyone safe?
Correct. We're going to keep crews out as long as we can until the winds get too harsh and too dangerous for the deputies. We've been working very well with all the municipalities, the mayors, state police, wildlife fisheries. So we're just going to keep working as normal until we can.
Okay, Mr. Driscoll, thank you so much for your time. Again, just giving us an update here on what law enforcement, what everyone here trying to keep everyone safe is doing as things continue to progress. But again, looking at that clock, I think Francine's not too far away from getting to us here. So we'll continue to be ready for that and to stay safe and ready down here in St. Mary Parish. So guys, with that, we'll send it back to you.
Matt Venezia, Brandon Shackelford giving us comprehensive coverage there out of St. Mary Parish, making sure all of our bases are covered. And here's where you can help us. Upload your photos and videos. As long as it's safe and you can get outside and snap a photo, send them in to us. As long as you have our 9 News app, even our WAFB First Alert Weather app, there's a 9 Reports section. You open up the app, and then on the homepage, you'll see all these boxes. Look for the 9 Reports bubble, and that's where you can submit your photos and videos to us. You know what's really helpful, Matt? When people send those things in to us, let us know kind of what street we're looking at, some context of what we're looking at, and that really helps us tell that story and show off exactly where we're looking at and what we're looking at.
Context is going to be absolutely key. Yeah, let us share those stories and help tell the story of Francine. Now, part of the story, hopefully, is you not driving around. Now, if you have to get out there, Louisiana State Police putting out this list of just be safe while you are out there, the very top one. That's the best one. Avoid the unnecessary travel. You know what to do out there. Not your first time dealing with rain and then maybe a little bit of wind here. Reduce your speed, allow all the extra time, increase the following distance. Do the things that you were taught in driving school, though we don't really pay attention to on the daily basis here in South Louisiana. State Police hoping you do that today if you have to be out there.
It's worth repeating because people need reminders not to panic, but to have a plan and make sure that you are listening here. And let's also get you a listen at the list of shelters. You can see our WAP digital team has been keeping up with the number of shelters opening up, and we're getting this really by the hour here. The last one we heard of from Iberville Parish, we're scrolling through and you can see St. John, St. James, and some of these are going to be shelters of last resort, the majority of them in fact. And Iberville Parish, just know that they are not taking pets. So if you are ending to evacuate, or maybe you just don't feel safe, maybe you feel if you live in a mobile home or RV especially, that that's not the safest place to ride this out, well, go ahead and make your way there. But again, check this list and make sure that pets are allowed at these places. Remember, they are family members. The last thing you want to do is leave them behind and then call emergency services to go get them because they were left behind.
That's a tough look. This is something that goes back, well, many hurricanes, but for folks who were here for like a Katrina and a Rita, that kind of thing, or even a Gustav in 08, there were so many of those stories. I had to leave them behind. I couldn't take them. And so so many stories came out about that we started to see more shelters taking in pets. Yeah, I know. If you've got one of those, to your point, one of those furry family members, you need to get out and you're coming up on a place that doesn't take them. I know that sucks.
Yeah.
But they're trying to make sure that they have everything they can and some restrictions in place, that kind of a thing. But yeah, it's been a while. I mean, going all the way back a number of years and a number of storms where folks are like, I had nowhere to go because I had my pets with me, my family members with me.
The single most memory that I have is the flood of 2016. Look, I think it's safe to say a lot of people were caught off guard with the amount of rainfall we got, the evacuation plan. A lot of people were in the same boat thinking, my home has never flooded before. I don't need to worry about this. And then some people left their pets behind. Well, we were live out in the field. I still remember it. We were going around in Ascension Parish, and you'd be surprised. The great crew we were with, volunteers who just came up out of nowhere saying, we have boats, we have life jackets, let's get you on. We ended up doing a couple of runs back and forth to dry land, just rescuing pets. People who had tied up their dogs, people who had left their cats in cages, rabbits even. I still remember, if you were watching and you were part of that crew that day, so many volunteers stepped up, the Cajun Navy being some of them there. But it was sad to see how many pets were left behind just because people in other rescue boats just couldn't accommodate those pets here. And remember, in most of our viewing area, a lot of the animal shelters, city parish offices, parish government offices, animal services is included in that, and they are not open today. They want to make sure that their staff is safe and they don't have to be out if they don't need to be. So even if you were to make that call, chances are your pet getting rescued is not going to be the call today because the office is not staffed today.
Human life is going to be obviously it's going to take that priority and the precedence. But yeah, that's those conversations, to your point. I mean, it's just they've been happening for years. Just make sure you know where you're headed and what you're able to bring with you.
That's the goal. As with anything, you can stay on top of all of our resources that we have ready and waiting for you. WAFB.com and the 9 News app. And remember to download that WAFB weather app while it's on the top of your mind here. Let's remind you to download that. We're staying on top of all the things, making sure that you have all of the updates and that you need. In about 20 minutes, we are expecting the next track to come out from the National Weather Service here to find out what Hurricane Francine is doing, where she's looking, what she's looking like now as we track the latest developments.
Remember, it's about 90 miles an hour right now. That pressure that they continue to watch that lets our meteorologists know if it might be increasing in strength. And now, this doesn't mean in size, but in the pressure, talking about actually its power, what it is able to possibly do. Still right now, before the 10 o'clock update, thinking it could possibly become that Cat 2. Again, we'll see. That next update coming in at about 10 o'clock. We'll see if the shift changes a little bit with where it might be coming ashore. It has shifted certainly since Sunday, since we started watching that, shifted to the east. Again, about 10 o'clock.
That's it. Of course, with anything, our First Alert Weather Team is making sure that you are staying on top of all of that. So you might be thinking, as you join our coverage here this morning, we've been live since about 4:30, letting you know and staying on top of it, just making sure that you are prepared, not unnecessarily, but it's making sure that we have all of the information at our fingertips so that you and your family know, okay, what are we facing depending on where we live? Because not everyone lives in Tangipahoa Hope Parish. Not everyone lives in East Baton Rouge Parish. So depending on where you live, I know we're getting a lot of specific questions about where is this going to target? What time is it going to hit my area? Right. And remember, that can change. A lot can change between now and this afternoon, where we're still eyeing that landfall time. Yeah. So that's why we're keeping you on top of all of this. And then note that that will change as well. So our messaging here, a lot of the city parish officials and government leaders that we're following here, they just want to make sure that you are aware and on top of all of this. And then we're checking in with state leaders as well. And about 11:30 this morning, we're set to hear from Governor Jeff Landry on the latest update on how GOSEP is preparing. It'll be interesting to see how this plan will kind of unfold here. The GOSEP and the Unified Command Group kind of staying on the same page with the messaging, but this is largely Governor Jeff Landry's first test in office. He was elected as Attorney General back in 2019. So he, in that role, would talk price gouging when you talk about gas and commodities and things that you may need. And of course, Hurricane Ida was a big test as he was Attorney General, but as Governor Matt, this is going to be a first big real test.
It's another level. And then, of course, you talked about the price gouging, and then as Attorney General, he's now leaning on this mural to actually have those conversations right now. We've heard from her as well what you should do if you see, for example, price gouging, that kind of thing. They have a website set up for that. You can report that. You can report it locally, but you can also report it to them, get a running list, and depending on the severity of this, could come knocking on doors. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see the messaging, to your point, from Governor Jeff Landry, all the unified voices behind him. It's interesting to me, I've been in Louisiana for 20 plus years. My whole family's from Louisiana, from New Orleans to Jennings. Louisiana holds on to its people, right? I mean, it's just community and generations going back for many, many years. And so for a lot of folks, this is not the first time, and ain't gonna be the last. But it's interesting, from every little social media site that I'm following, this and that, I am seeing a lot of, hey, this is my first time. Hey, I'm new to Louisiana. Hey, it's amazing to me how many I am seeing. Maybe I'm seeing so many because they're out there in front asking questions on social media. I had one person asking, hey, do we fill up bathtubs here full of water? Yeah. You know what? If it makes you feel better, do it. Now, obviously, Baton Rouge Water Company will tell you don't be sitting there wasting water where you don't need to. Sure. But they've got generators ready to go. As far as a power loss, that kind of thing, so that we don't lose our water pressure, that kind of thing. But filling up bathtubs, it's a little bit different. If you get north and you're talking like ice storms, snowstorms, that kind of a thing. But if it makes you feel better, because there's only so much that we can control individually. Right. If it makes you feel a little bit better, get that stuff going. There's a reason folks are going to the stores and getting jugs of water, that kind of thing. Sure. So if it makes you feel that much better, welcome to South Louisiana. We'll help you get through it. Go ahead and do your thing.
So speaking of the bathtub, a bathroom, it's a good, safe place to stay, right? It can be. In the event of a tornado, I know we're not looking at that right now. No. This is just in case, especially if you have young children, this might be a good time to have this conversation with them that the bathroom is going to be a safe place to stay, right? A place with no windows. It's going to be the innermost room in your house. How often have we heard from our First Alert Weather Team that you want to pick a place that's going to be free and clear of any windows, any innermost part of your door, whether it's, some people have their pantry, right, doesn't have any windows or places like that. But really just have that conversation. Kids, if we get to a situation where we hear a tornado warning come through our phone or our weather app or an emergency warning, there's no need to panic. We have a plan set in place. We know exactly what is going on. It's all about having these conversations to make sure the littlest of little ones in our families, that they're not scared. It's all having this conversation and preparing them to know, look, mom and dad have got this. We know exactly what we're doing. We did a run through. Right. While things are calm, just let them know what may happen.
Tone, the messaging.
Setting that tone early on.
My kids set my tone for me now. They let me know when to panic.
It's a good family. You've prepared them well, is what it is.
It's never. They're fine. They're fine. They're doing their thing. Okay, so eyes on the ground all over the place, from the coastal parishes to in Baton Rouge. Actually, our Gabrielle Mercurio has been moving around Baton Rouge, giving us a look. She was down at the levee a little bit earlier. She was over at Baton Rouge Metro Airport a little bit earlier as well. She continues to move around, kind of giving us a view of what's going on. Joining us again now. Gabby?
And checking in with our local officials before Francine, Chief TJ Morris, talk to me a little bit about how things have been going for you guys this morning.
So going well. You know, we're making all our preparations, preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. Our officers have to take care of their families and their homes, and now are coming into work, just getting prepared for what is going to come. And then after the storm, any kind of aftermath that, power outages and extra patrols we have to do because of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of talked about, like you said, extra staffing, having people here during and after the storm. Any areas in particular you were looking to kind of like beef up or make sure that there were extra units out there for?
Yeah, so we have basically all hands on deck. We're extending our hours for all officers, our uniform patrol officers, and those officers that are currently don't typically work in a uniform capacity, like detectives, specialized divisions. They showed up to work today in uniforms. We're going to be putting them to work, kind of supplement and helping out there, so we can free up those officers to respond to emergency calls and other calls for service. We can use those detectives to go block roads and respond to flooding or trees down, anything that might come up. And then after the fact, any electricity that's out in those areas that need extra security or extra patrols because of no electricity will be out there as well.
Okay, awesome. And we were kind of talking, like you said, having them block off any high water roads, things like that. Are there certain areas that you kind of have extra people strategically placed, kind of knowing that might be happening?
Yeah, so being here at MOSEP, we also have our own incident command system set up at headquarters. But we know where some of those barricades are already pre-staged, some of those areas that are can kind of flood. So we put barricades where we can, put units where we need to put them as well, just being prepared for any kind of possible scenario.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to remind people as they're trying to hunker down for this storm?
Just stay off the roads whenever possible. Let our emergency crews be out there. The less traffic we have, the better, and less emergencies that could happen with the less traffic out there. Be prepared. If you see high water driving, turn around. Don't try to go through it. Look for those down power lines. Stay away from them. Call 311. Keep our 911 emergency lines clear. And then we're going to be all working together to get through this, even aftermath. The best thing about these kind of things is whenever we see the community come together and neighbor helping neighbor, and the Baton Rouge Police Department will be there to help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Chief TJ Morris, thanks so much for your time. Like he said, make sure you guys hunker down, stay off of the roads, and make sure you're just staying in place. Have our First Alert Weather app downloaded and the 9 News app for any other alerts and updates you might need. At MOSEP, Gabriela Mercurio, WAFB 9 News.
Gabby, Chief Morris, thank you. The messaging is clear. Be prepared, have that plan, and stay home.
So we're talking about the timing on this. When might we need to actually be prepared for whatever this storm throws at the Baton Rouge viewing area? We actually got the very latest numbers, the 10 o'clock update. So let's get to Jared Silverman, see if we can't figure this out. It looks like, official landfall being pushed back even later now?
Yeah, it does, Matt and Liz. Thank you so much. I'm going to show you that. We just got the update for 10 a.m., and it looks like it has slowed the forward progression a little bit. We're getting to that in just a second. Flood watch continues until 7 a.m. tomorrow. Tropical storm warnings are still up north of EBR. From EBR down to the south, we still have the hurricane warning. And again, it looks like that's going to stay the case. You can start to see some of the heavier bands are moving into the southern part of our viewing area, not so much into New Orleans, but from Golden Meadow to Houma over to Morgan City, but they lose their punch the farther to the north they move. Still have the well-defined eye wall, and you could see the eye wall right around it getting a little bit more in the way of convection. We're starting to see heavier downpours there, and of course those heavier downpours are going to migrate. Now the million-dollar question throughout the morning has been, are we leaning, or is the National Hurricane Center leaning more on the graph or on the European? Right now it looks like they're in the middle, but starting to lean a little more on the European that has the later arrival time. But even the Futurecast graph is starting to show a slightly later arrival time too. So now it's looking like it's going to be late afternoon, early evening that we finally get it onto the coast. Meanwhile, it still looks like the graph wants to put all of the worst weather a little bit closer towards the New Orleans area, not so much right in the immediate Baton Rouge, and then everything starts to clear on out of here. So before getting to that updated track, let me show you how the models have changed a little bit. Look at Cocodrie. This is at at 4 p.m. So the graph model has slowed down a little bit. I still think landfall is probably going to be a little bit later than what you're seeing here, but at 4 p.m., definitely knocking on the doorstep. That's the 80-mile-per-hour gust. Now remember, because this is the graph model is going to show that the winds are a lot worse in the New Orleans area and not quite as bad for us in the Baton Rouge area. Now the reason is they've got the center circulation angling a little bit farther away from us. That's what the graph says. The European says something a little bit different. First, let's start with the arrival time of the European. The European is closer to 7 p.m., and I'm going to show you the new track, which is also closer. So right now, it looks like the Weather Service and the Hurricane Center, they are leaning a little bit more on this European model, which shows Morgan City still ground zero, still front and center at around 76 miles per hour. Now, notice, though, on the European, they give us a little bit more in the way of brisker, stronger winds in the Baton Rouge area. They've got it at a 70-mile-per-hour wind gust between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. Makes sense because they've got the center of circulation just passing through, not that far off from the Baton Rouge area. But of course, it's going to weaken. So by the time it passes us by, it's important to note it's not going to be a hurricane anymore. It's actually going to be down to tropical storm strength with very similar rainfall there. That's why we still have that flood risk in the same spot. Now, the severe weather risk, that has actually moved a little bit farther to the east as well at a level 2. So here's the 10 a.m. You see that it's still at 90 miles per hour, still at 976. It looks like it's gaining more steam, but it's actually, for all intents and purposes, not so much increasing its strength. So watch what happens on this new track. You're going to see a couple of things. The first thing you're going to see is they've actually removed the number 2. So now right before it makes landfall, they actually have it maintaining as a 1. So now the thinking is it's either going to remain as a 1 or it might very briefly just barely cross that threshold. It would have to be over 95 miles per hour to get to Cat 2. It would be a very low end. And now look at this. That's Wednesday at 7 p.m. So like I mentioned, it looks like the National Hurricane Center is leaning a little bit more towards the European, a little bit away from the graph model, which for us in Baton Rouge is kind of a good news, bad news scenario. Good news because it hopefully won't be quite as strong and only a 1 and maybe a tropical storm when it passes us. The not so good news for Baton Rouge is the European model. Remember, that's the model that's got the center circulation a little bit closer to our neck of the woods. So we really start to take a closer look here, and it looks like the area of Morgan City is still very close, and it should be around a Category 1 at that time, and it's going to take off a lot faster beyond that point. We've seen these tracks move east and east and east. This latest track hasn't really moved that much. That tells us at least now they're coming together with a model consensus, and now it looks like the track, it's not completely set in stone, but we are getting a little bit closer to it being that way. So it looks like anywhere between around the Morgan City area and Cocodrie and probably even in the Houma area, you guys will have the possibility of getting those hurricane force winds, at least maybe an 80-mile-per-hour wind gust. Again, by the time it gets to Baton Rouge, we're in that 70 to 80-mile-per-hour gust category, and the farther off to the east you go, unfortunately in the New Orleans area, that's the bad side. That's the dirty side of the storm. So it looks like the storm surge is still very similar at 5 to 10 feet. That's the latest prediction that we have there. Of course, that's more of an issue on the immediate coastline. We're still going to keep our chances in for preparing for a Cat 1 to a Cat 2, but again, by the time it gets to the Baton Rouge area, it should be a little bit less than that. Heavy rain and flood threat today and tonight. The weather continues to deteriorate throughout the day, especially as we get into the afternoon. So hopefully you've done everything you need to do to prep, and now you can just kind of calm down and hunker down. Hurricane force winds are still going to be possible, but the weather improves very, very rapidly Thursday morning. By daybreak, I think we're good to go, and this thing is a thing of the past. The other silver lining, the temperatures, they should stay in the upper 70s throughout the day today. So even if we do unfortunately lose some power, at least we don't have that brutal heat outside. Then we're going to keep you pumped up to an 80% chance, and after midnight, we're going to quickly taper that all the way down to 0, close enough that when we get to Thursday, we can get rid of the red, we can get rid of the first alert weather day, which we've done, and we can probably even get rid of that 40% and knock that down a little bit before we start opening the door to nicer weather, but unfortunately hotter weather too. So again, the main thing we'll focus on are the wind speeds, the possibility possibility of power outages that we're going to get. But Matt and Liz, the bottom line here is that the 10 a.m. update, we have not seen it intensify, and in fact now the track keeps it as a Category 1, so I guess we can call that a small victory, you guys.
Hey, we'll take every victory we can get. Jared Silverman, thank you. You know, Jared is one member of our incredible First Alert Weather team here, the most experienced team in South Louisiana, actually in the state of Louisiana here. We actually have 3 meteorologists in the house right now. Henry Blakes, which you've seen throughout the last couple of hours here. Jeff Morrow is also here as well. Dr. Steve Caparotto will be joined by Cindy Goldberg later on this afternoon as we continue to track Hurricane Francine with you throughout the whole day.
It's comforting, right? It's to know that those guys and gals have us keeping us in the know. The very latest on Hurricane Francine. You just got the numbers from Jared. Again, we'll keep tracking that for you. Back in a quick moment, almost 10 o'clock.